Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you, Larry, for being there. I think you are one of my first friend in the Asana world.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know how long it's been. I'm really not good with numbers. Six
6 or
years or
7 years or something. Yeah. Long time ago, and we
yeah,
never seen each other. I
not
hope we
in
can be.
person.
Yeah, I hope I can be invited by Asana someday to go to San Francisco.
That would be great.
Anyway, so I've been doing those videos every morning. I called them Asana morning videos. Asana, what's the name again? Asana Coffee. Um,
Coffee with a French toast.
yeah, exactly. My God, I forgot the name. And I've done almost 100 episodes of them. It has been a very interesting challenge, like productivity wise. It was very interesting to see that I can come up with something almost every day. And we decided that the season one would end after the 100 episode, and we would change the format. So basically, today is a new part of that format, which is a longer discussion with guests from the Asana ecosystem. And I am going to keep doing small videos every morning on Asana related topics as well.
I watch all of those, all 100 of them, or 99 of them so far, whatever it is, and they're great. We're all in awe of the quality and volume of content that you produce. So that's
Yeah,
great,
it's
and I'm
actually
definitely
quite
honored to
hard.
be.
Yeah, it's quite
I was
hard
going to
to
say
find something to talk about every day.
it doesn't seem that way. It's always something, something useful. So I was just going to say I'm really honored to be on the premiere of your Asana Coffee with series.
Exactly. It's a test drive. I don't have a coffee with me because it's actually 7 p.m. for me.
Yeah,
But I guess it's you do. What time is it for you?
I'll come in. It's 10 o'clock. So
And you don't have an Asana mug?
I have one, but I don't use it for coffee. I should.
Okay.
I'll switch.
Fair
But
enough. Maybe
I have a,
I should send one to the guests before we record anything.
I've got my Yeti and an otter behind me, and you've got your
Exactly.
Yeti there.
So
I have
today I want
another
to
coffee
talk.
related visual aid, though.
Okay, show
I'm
me.
wondering, have you ever seen, whoops.
It's a coffee bean, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a coffee cherry.
Okay, that's the name. Cherry.
That's that's the fruit of the coffee. So I picked
Okay.
it off my tree downstairs. So, and inside that is that's a little
Okay,
hard to
it's like a
see.
peanut.
Yeah,
SD.
that's the coffee bean, but it's
Amazing.
not dark because it hasn't been roasted yet. And
So
this
you
came
roasted
out
them
of that
yourself?
cherry. This came out of that cherry last night. I picked it out of there. It's got a bunch of goo on it, but no, I got you have to have a roasting machine. Well, you can do roast at home, but I had it professionally sample roasted by a friend at a local coffee shop, and we sampled the coffee. This is a couple of years ago, but I've had 3 harvests from this one tree, enough to make each one of them to make like half a bag of coffee at the most. It's a huge amount of work. You wouldn't makes you really appreciate every drop of coffee that you drink. But so I processed it all. They sample roasted it. And then we had kind of a party sharing it with a bunch of coffee people.
So
It
how
tasted
many
like coffee.
cups? Yeah, how many cups do you get from one tree?
Oh, that's a good question. In production, I'm trying to think. You would probably get only every season, which is either once or twice a year, you might get a few bags of coffee from a tree at most, I think. No, well, maybe, yeah, maybe a few bags of coffee for one tree. And you think how much coffee people in the world drink.
Yeah,
It's really unbelievable, and how much processing is involved in all of it. But
it
it's
is
kind of a fun
amazing. And
hobby.
how good is your coffee compared to everything else?
It's it didn't have any flaws in it, because there are a lot of flaws that can develop, but it was not a very interesting coffee. It was kind of plain. It's not, if you go to very high altitude, cultivated with good terroir and soil and everything, then you'll get really, really fun coffee that has all flavors of different spices and fruits and things. But mine was just mediocre at best, but it
But it's
wasn't
yours.
tasted like coffee.
Yeah, I'd love
Was
to taste it. So today I want to talk about two things. two things that you love and that I love, which is Asana to go and subtasks, which is a very weird topic. And I think we already did a video about subtasks. I think we talked about subtasks for about 30 minutes, didn't we?
That's
A
right.
couple of years
That's right. That
ago.
was years ago. Yeah.
I didn't even check out how many views we had, but I think a couple of people watched this video.
Yeah.
Um, so let's start on Asana to go. Can you remind us what it is exactly and when you started working on this?
Yeah, probably about 4 or 5 years ago it came out, and it's a free to for personal and commercial use. You just can't earn money directly from like writing reports and selling those, but
Okay.
anything for your business or personal use, you can use it. You have to license with me if you want to do that. But otherwise, for 99% of the people, it's totally free. And it's pretty popular. Like 11,000 people are using it or have installed it anyway. Don't use it every day, I'm sure. But and it's a Chrome extension. You can install it in about 30 seconds. You just go to asana2go.com. That's the number two. And you can install it. And what it does is it's basically allows you to copy, print, and export flexibly from Asana. So Asana really offers you no flexibility at all. You can print all your tasks in a project, or you can print one task in one way, showing absolutely everything, all the subtasks and all the custom fields and everything. This provides about 20 standard reports that you can just sort of pick off the shelf and say, I want to see this like a card, or I want to see this like a table or like a list, 20 different ways. And, or you can, there's a built-in authoring tool. So you can just take any one of those and tweak it. You have to know a little HTML. You can tweak it and fully customize it or start from scratch and build any kind of an output that you want. If you're working in a factory and you need to print out, picking orders or something, you can do a custom output like that. That's
I think,
basically the.
yeah, I think a pretty common use case is people wanting their logo in the corner. I don't know if this is something you've seen happen often.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. You can, if you, again, you need to know some HTML and CSS if you want to do that. Otherwise, you really hardly need to know anything else. So if you're a web developer or if you're just anything on doing websites, you can use this. You need to learn about it, but you can use it. And there's a lot of videos and documentation on it. And it's probably the biggest use case is you want to work in Asana, but you're collaborating with somebody who's not in Asana. So you want all your stuff in Asana, and then you want to easily ship it out to them. So you can just mark all your tasks or, selected tasks, get the output that you want, paste it into an email or a document, or get a CSV or PDF, and kind of you're in Asana and they're not.
So the only native alternative would be to print the task list. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, you can print the task list, or you can print one single, one
Task.
by one, each task, one by
Mhm.
one. So you'd have to ask to print every time, and there's no customization to that.
It's pretty
So,
ugly,
I
the
know.
output you
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
Do you think it's intentional? Because what I think is they don't want to make it easy for you to collaborate with people that would not come into Asana. Do you think that's the reason?
I I think the reason is that they want you to be, online and interactive and using Asana because, and I actually steer clients away from Asana to go if there's another solution because the minute you print it, it's out of date or could be out of date, and it's offline. So I think that's the main reason why they don't invest too much in the printing is they want to discourage the printing. Not, but it could be for the reason you're mentioning too. Maybe both of those things.
One of my clients was actually printing their my tasks every day to know what they had to work on. That drives me nuts. Trying to get them back into the tool. It's also better for the planet, obviously, to not print your my task view every day.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So have you seen interesting, unexpected use cases? You probably don't look at the actual thing people generate, but based on the support tickets you get, have you seen interesting use cases?
Yeah. Trying to think. I mean, people are using it for everything, and it's just kind of fun that they've embraced it. And I always like to hear when they're making custom outputs because I spent a lot of time building that, and it's cool that it's being used that way. Um, there have been a few interesting ones. None come to mind exactly of like really dramatic uses, but there have been a number of surprising ones that are very, very particular to their needs, and just what Asana to go is for basically is to fill a gap. And it's a lot of times you wouldn't use it every day, but you might need it,
Yes,
periodically.
can save you from time to time.
Yeah, there's actually a kind of a cool built-in use case if you've ever wanted to look at like the task detail pane kind of as an interesting layout. I actually have a standard output that looks very much like that, but you can select 5 or 10 tasks, and you can see 10 detail panes side by side in a fully responsive browser window. So you can shrink them down and you can see them all side by side and actually expand and collapse sections. Like you'd see all the custom fields or collapse them all for all 10 tasks at once. See the description or collapse them all. So it's even more powerful than the task detail pane in that regard.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of fun. They're all different use cases because every output is different. Even there's a really weird one. It's still an output, but it's a slideshow.
Yeah, I was
So
about to ask you about this. You have the Eisenhower matrix, you have a slideshow.
yeah, you can do like a SWOT chart, like strength, weakness,
Yeah,
opportunity,
yeah.
threat, or Eisenhower chart, or the slideshow is the one I use a lot. Definitely every first time I present to a client organization of my services, it's in an Asana to go slideshow. They don't know that, but it's there. So there's a full
You didn't
slide.
include like a mention saying made with Asana to go?
Sometimes if it comes up, I'll tell them that it was actually came
Yeah.
from Asana. They're very surprised at the end. But yeah, that one. So you have some tasks and subtasks, and just select the slides that you want, and you can skip the ones you don't want. There's a full presentation framework built in, and you just hit your right arrow and you go through the slides, and there's automatic builds are done. Like you see maybe the task and the description, and then the task, and then the subtask is kind of the heading, and then the body of the slide. Just does all that automatically, but you can also fully customize the presentation with different tags that you add in there. And there's even a speaker notes facility built in. So if you really want to go to town on it, you can. But what's fun is you're like 5 minutes before a meeting, you've got a few of your ideas in Asana as a task with subtasks. You can have a slide of that right there. You don't have to you certainly can just show Asana, but it's a little geeky maybe to show Asana, or there's other junk in there. You can show it as a nice slideshow. So I've used that quite a bit.
So it's only available within Chrome. How big of an issue it is it that it's not available within the desktop app? Do you have any idea how many people use this desktop app now?
I don't know.
Yeah, me
I've
neither.
wondered. I know Asana, they're split. I don't know the degree of split or percentages, but some people use browser, some desktop. It's not a problem for Asana to go because in most cases, it's not used on a, like hourly or daily basis. You can use the desktop, and then when you need the functionality, just drop into the browser for that
Exactly.
purpose.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not, if it were like a time tracker, it wouldn't work. But it does work in Chrome, Edge, and a couple of the newer browsers that are based on the same framework.
They're all
So it
based on
does.
Chromium, aren't they?
That's right. So it works on all those because they
So
allow
you
you to do
didn't
those
have to
extensions.
do anything to have the code work for the other browsers. It just worked out of the box.
That's right. Firefox,
Amazing.
it does not work out of the box. There's a bunch of effort involved in that, and I haven't
Yeah, but
I
the
haven't
market
done it.
share is probably pretty low.
That's right. So got lucky with those other browsers there.
Yeah.
So there's the
So
one. Oh,
go ahead.
okay. One last feature is the one that would frustrate you if you used it all the time and you like the desktop interface, because even though Asana to Go is mainly outputting, like the reports or the slides or whatever, I added one thing. I got tired of the date dialogue in Asana to try to set dates and times and not use the mouse a lot. So I made something very, very, rapid and keyboard based. So in about 8 keystrokes, you can bring up a new dialogue that's in Asana to go. You can still use the built-in one. You have your choice, but you can open that up, set a date and a time, and close it in literally eight keystrokes and all on the keyboard. And you can do it for multiple tasks at once or multiple subtasks at once.
It's pretty
So I
neat.
use that all day long, and
Yeah,
it's yeah, really speeds things up. It's just pleasant to use. And you can also, if you want, at the same in the same dialogue, you can triage if it's a my tasks, if it's assigned to you, triage it to a section. All your sections appear with a shortcut. You can pick a
oh,
section to put it in, and you can multi-home it to one of 10 of your favorite projects, all in one fell swoop. So date, time, triage, my tasks.
so does that mean that Asana to go will slowly go towards being an all-in-one app with other stuff being added? Because why didn't you build a second app that only does this?
That's a great question. I thought about that a lot. I was initially going to make it separate, and I thought I have a lot of people using Asana to go already, and it
You want to
just
piggyback on
seems
this, obviously.
piggyback on that, and there was a lot of code that was already there, and I figured it might one day, all that stuff of the multi-homing and all that, and the triage. I had some built-in stuff for that already, so it was just easier this way. But I don't anticipate adding tons of features like that unless I have a really great idea. I'll go try to add it.
Yeah, but you're like me, like I would wake up at night with ideas that I couldn't get out of my head and just code them because I cannot not do this. And I guess that leads to my next question. Why do I'm like you, why do we do this? Why do we code hundreds of hours for something that is free? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Well, good question. I'd like to hear why you do it. I guess I'll tell you why I do it. First of all, I don't do it that much. My background is in software development and user experience design, interaction design, information architecture, and I'm very rusty with coding. So unlike you, you're a far, far, far better
I'm
coder than
getting
me.
rusty though.
Tell me about it. But in my case, I had an idea that I thought was really powerful, and I thought it would be fun to see. I was thinking I could embed with some libraries that would help me so I wouldn't have to code everything, the ability to just select tasks and then have essentially a template language and HTML and CSS, no JavaScript, no code, nothing, just a template language. And I could do an enormous number of things. And so I built it. And then I decided, well, I ought to have that authoring environment in there. And that was a lot of work, but I could have done it without that. But it was just a really fun idea, and I could make it complete. There's almost the whole Asana API documentation, not their documentation, but my short one is kind of embedded as helpers in the
Mhm.
authoring mode. So I had a great idea, and I thought, and I thought it could be done, and I really wanted to see it. Nobody else was going to do it. I couldn't convince you to do it. So what drives you? Because you have dozens and dozens of tools, and every week it seems like you're coming out with something
Yeah, and
new.
it's a big difference between you, Phil Seaman from Flozana, and me is that you dedicate years of your life to building one tool. And I don't have that dedication. I just want to build a lot of small tools
Yeah,
because I get my thrill from releasing something. I
yeah.
don't get any thrill from just adding new features to something that exists already. And I'm good at just starting stuff, but not finishing, I guess. That's why I'm starting a lot of
Well,
tools.
you finish so many things that it's nobody would believe that's the case. But yeah, I can see that uh, I'm more of a completist.
Yes,
I like to do something as thoroughly as
perfectionist.
possible. That's right. try not to be, but I'm probably guilty of that.
I think
But
being a
your
coder is
tools,
such an amazing thing. Like you have a power to create stuff, and after just a weekend, you can have something working that actually saves time, and it's an amazing power to
yeah,
have.
yeah, it's really, yeah, it's fun just operating in that environment. I really miss it, so maybe I'll get back there. But I've mainly been doing, it's all consulting, training, workflow design. That's where I spend almost all of my Asana time, and learning Asana, because
Yeah,
that's becoming a
it's a
full-time job,
full-time
just keeping
job.
up.
It is. It is.
Absolutely.
The problem is the bigger your app becomes, the more people rely on it. And then you have to make sure it keeps working, and you have to make sure the servers work. You have to pay for the servers. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So does your app funnel a lot of leads to your consulting business? Are you able to
Uh,
track this
mm,
precisely?
um, you're probably able to track it precisely. I don't really do that. I don't do that well. I'm not a good sales or marketer or data
It doesn't matter
capture.
that much though.
Yeah. I mean, I do hear that people, I do ask clients, where do they find me? And, um, it's all sort of part of the puzzle of like, we both are Asana forum leaders, and we answer way more questions than we probably should in Asana forum. That's fun to help people. So a lot of my referrals come from there, or they come from Asana to Go. They learn about that too. And I don't really do a good job. I should do a good job tracking, but I'm not. I'm not. You have a fairly new or a couple years old organization that's Asana solution provider, and you're growing and growing. uh, I'm an old man, Bastien, and it's just me doing this work. So I don't have to sustain all that.
Yeah, and
I
also at
kind
the
of have
same
all the
time,
work that I need. Yeah,
it's there's no point in tracking something if you're not going to do anything with the value that you get. You're not going to quit working on Asana to Go even if it doesn't bring any leads. So there's
that's
no
right.
point in tracking anyway.
That's right. It's kind of a funny business model that I have. I definitely like this work and seek out the work, but from all these various sources it comes, and it's enough. So I wouldn't action any of those results. So why bother putting in instrumenting a lot of code and figuring out what's getting clicked and things like that? Doesn't much matter to me. But I definitely respect people who do that. They need to do that, and they need to figure that out. So yeah, different needs basically.
So you touched on something interesting, which is the fact that keeping up with Asana is a full-time job. And we even have, at my company, we have an entire project just to track the roadmap because of the fact that we do not have access to the actual roadmap. So we try to get
Yeah,
all of that insights from everywhere. And subtasks is a very complicated topics, and subtasks are available in dashboards, in reporting, in my tasks, in search, and they behave differently depending on where you are. And this is something we have talked about for a long time, and we can see on the forum, especially, that people are actually lost.
yeah.
What's your I guess my big question is, do you think subtasks, it's a hard question. Do you think they're broken? And my second question is, do you think Asana considers them to be broken? Or on the opposite, they don't think it's broken, there's nothing to be fixed?
It's probably I don't know. I hate to speculate about Asana because I have
Please
no
do. Please
I
do.
have no deep, knowledge or crystal ball. But I would, if I had to guess, as you're making me, I would say they probably wish certain things could be done differently. But I think they've taken a lot of steps and made subtasks better, resolved some issues that were there. They're probably hampered or constrained. This is a complicated product, and you can't just make a change that somebody asks
Yes.
for. It's going to break 1,000 other things, and I don't think people requesting it wouldn't necessarily have any understanding of that unless they're, you know, product managers or developers or something. They may not be aware of the consequences
If
of
you yeah, but
that
if you tell
request.
them that on the forum, they tell you, why don't you just put a toggle to enable or disable a specific behavior, which is not
Right.
acceptable, and we know it isn't.
Right. I mean that, well, that's actually an area where I wish Asana would be a little more lenient, like add a few more customizable toggles, settings, basically. They seem to have a principle of keeping those to the barest minimum because it makes the product easier to use and easier for them to maintain. And it's, I think overall that's a good idea. But, you know, I think the hardest part of all this is we have to always keep in mind this product is unique. It could be used by almost any individual or any team or any organization in any industry, you know, to at any level of that organization, the highest level goals to the lowest level, you know, task or subtask in this case. Um, they're, you know, to make a set of uh, tools to, you know, allow all those people in all those environments to carry out that work. You're going to be frustrated by that tool at some point because it's never going, you know, it's going to be a limited set of functionality and you will run into a dead end at some point. And there's no precedent for any of this behavior of integrating multi-homing and subtasks. There's not like some model application you can go to and say it should behave like that does, because it's all new. It's a new paradigm. The whole thing is a new paradigm. It's not like a document and you create, you know, you're going to create Google Docs, so you look at what Word did, do the opposite or something like that. But so that's my, you know, that's my take. But what do you feel they think it's broken or?
I think I think they created subtasks initially as this way to simply list small steps shown someone actually the assignee should do in order to complete the work. And I think it was easier for them to make a subtask behave like a task and have an assignee and have a date and have description and everything. It was just easier for them. But that opened the door to people using subtasks in a way that was not anticipated. And I think for a long time it was okay because there were no forum to complain. There were not enough clients, and even the one they had, I think they were able to explain to them the way subtasks work. The problem now we have is that people onboard themselves all day, every day, and they don't do that properly. They just go into the tool and start
Yeah,
using the tool, and they go into subtasks right away, and they don't have someone explain to them the limitations, explain to them that sometimes having a lot of project is actually okay. You do not have to put everything into
yeah,
tasks and subtasks, and it's not explained anywhere. I think you and I haven't been onboarded on the app recently. We've been onboarded years ago, so we don't see what people see now, but I'm pretty sure there's nothing that explains how to use subtasks properly. And there's no truth either. There's not a good way. There's just a lot of
yeah,
different use cases. And we talk about those all day, every day on the forum. There are so
right.
many ways to use subtasks. And it's getting blurrier because the subtasks very slowly belong to the project, but not everywhere. And you have a lot of small
Yeah,
use
yeah.
cases you need to know to make sure you don't hit a wall down the road when you implement a song.
Well, I think the whole problem is just like a symptom of the fact that Asana has gotten a huge number of features and it's accelerating. The velocity is kind of increasing of late. And it used to be, you know, 10 years ago, it was quite simple to use because it didn't have that many features and you couldn't get into too much trouble. And now, you know, how does one feature interrelate with another feature? And that poses interesting questions and dilemmas, and it's not all going to work perfectly the way you think. So you need to become an expert in Asana if you're going to build workflows and expect to have good workflows in your organization, or you need to hire somebody like us to help you and, you know, train a trainer there or directly
Yeah.
create those workflows. I think it's just a symptom of this complexity overall. Subtasks, I don't think is anything terribly special, but I think we could use this. We could in 10 minutes probably give all the tips for subtasks that could be one-stop shopping for people to not hit those dead ends.
We can either do that now, or we can co-author a post on the forum to explain like the truth about subtasks.
Either way, I think it's too dry and in written form, but
Yeah, and I just
either
have
way,
one question because as you
yeah,
said, if you change something, you're going to hurt like half of the people, like half of the workflows will be broken, which is a big problem because you can't,
yeah,
you reach a certain point where you can't do anything because half of
yeah,
the people have broken workflows, but if you fix that, that breaks the other half.
yeah.
That being said, something as simple as showing the project a subtask belongs to in my tasks, it doesn't break anything, does it? So why don't they just do this? I think it's one of the last step, one of the last missing piece that they haven't done. So why not?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think
And it's not
I
that hard
have a
technically. I hate when people
right,
say it's easy because usually it isn't
right,
from the
right.
from a code standpoint. But in that case, I'm sure it's super easy.
Well, I have a lot of respect for the Asana, product team and
Yeah,
the Asana
me
designers,
too.
the interaction designers. And I mean, sometimes I second guess them, but I try not to in the large. Um, and I don't know I could think of a few reasons why you wouldn't want to do it because it would confuse people. It's like, why does the project then, why is it special in my task? Because it doesn't actually happen anywhere else. That could frustrate people more or confuse people more. Now
So that
they
should be
get
the
this,
last step then. They should fix everything else, and then the last step
yeah,
would be to display the
yeah.
project, maybe.
But I don't know. I don't see it as like something is broken and needs to be fixed. I see it as, there are, you know, you have to use subtasks if you have a complex workflow. I don't think there's a way around it. And they're incredibly powerful, but you have to understand the pros and cons. And there's not that many to get in trouble with. And when you build a workflow, you need to prototype that. You need to do the 360 of that workflow. So if you're relying on three levels, like a task, subtask, and sub-subtask, because you can expand collapse in list view
Yeah,
and see the subtasks, so you can click those and then you can see either the task, top level task, or the subtask in the task detail pane. Then you can scroll down in that subtask and see those subtasks, at least the rows of them. You can't see the details of those. Now you say, oh, I'm going to use three levels then: top level task, subtask, and sub-subtask. Then you realize your list view needs to be sorted. That's going to support your workflow. The twisties have gone away, the expand collapse twisties. You now can't see that third level, and there's key information down there. Well,
yeah,
that's the fault of the workflow designer. That's not Asana's fault. Every product is going to have limitations, and if you don't want to, if you don't take the trouble to sort of audit your work, you're going to run into a dead end like that. Um, it's just a complexity problem, it's not really broken. So that's sort of my take on it. But they have taken steps to, where they can.
they have.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they did exactly what you're saying, if they do the pros and cons themselves of, the consequences of that, and they see it's worthwhile, or offering a toggle. They do offer some settings, so that would be great, to see that. But there are workarounds. You and I know all those workarounds that are perfectly workable. They're not, it's not a catastrophe. You can do it. And I wish it could be easier, but I'm not so sure it can be. There's a lot of complexity in design and in development. And like you point out, the problem of the people who, the existing base, that you can't just go break things. We know that makes people more upset than anything.
Do you know that at one point, I'm not sure it's still the case, but Basecamp had up to 4 different versions running at the same time so that they don't break people's workflow? That's
Yeah,
amazing and crazy at the same time.
right, right. Uh, yeah,
As a developer, it
definitely
just yeah, it makes me cringe.
right, right. I mean, as a customer, I would love that because, if I don't want to change, I don't have to change. And if I do, there's new development going on and I can jump on the bandwagon and do that. But it does constrain the company because they have to support all those versions and they won't innovate as quickly. Asana is, we see they're innovating incredibly quickly, which is really fun. you know you we like probably like a fast car or something. We like the most powerful Asana we can get, so we wouldn't really want that. If they can do it without breaking workflows, that's probably preferred. But i'll I kind of like that their their design principles in that way, because they're not breaking anything and they are getting fast innovation. It's sort of they're it's a moderate choice in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to conclude on talking about productivity. Do you consider yourself productive? How clean is your My Task view? How empty is your inbox? What's your daily habits to make sure that you are productive?
Well, I don't know how productive I am, but my inbox is always clean and always empty or close to empty. And my tasks is pretty immaculate. I have I have a bunch of tasks in there, but there are things that I like to keep an eye on, and they're in sections. I have an article on my website on my tasks, and I actually use that the final sort of augmented version that you end up with in the article if
Yep.
you follow it to the end. Pretty much use that. It's changed over the years, but it's been that way the last several years. Um, so it's not empty, but it's I can totally see what I have to work on right now, today, what I hope I could do today, but usually don't. It's all in there. It's very clear. And what was the other question? Inbox, my tasks.
Clean My Task, empty inbox, email inbox 0.
Oh
Are you
yeah.
practicing?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's almost always, yeah, very, you know, half a dozen items. I mean, occasionally more, but yeah, I clean that out.
It's one of those things that, to me, it's a game changer. If you have those 3 things, it's a game changer, but it's also really, really hard to convince people that it is. And even when they are convinced, it's really hard to have them follow those principles all day, every day. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we both stress with anything with Asana, number one is inbox and my or number one and two are inbox and my tasks in whatever order. None of the workflows are going to work if all the team members are not up on those two parts of Asana. It's the glue that holds it all together. So, but
Yeah,
it's difficult to get people on board with that.
I'm just going to finish on one anecdote. One client told me, I'm not using my tasks. I'm not using inbox. I just read the emails that come into my email inbox and do whatever it says.
Yeah.
That keeps me up at night just thinking about it.
I don't know, I don't know how they function. On the other hand, you know, and I don't know how people function without Asana, but they obviously do. So there's people have their systems and they work for them. So, who am I to argue? But if they're using Asana, I tell them the best way to use Asana that I know of. But yeah, I couldn't live that way myself. So it's interesting.
So last
I don't.
question. If you haven't met Asana a couple of years ago, if you met, I don't know, Monday or ClickUp, do you think your life would be the same? Do you think you would have built tools around that specific tool? Do you think you would be very productive? And I think it's a general question. Do you think those tools are as good as Asana, but just built differently?
Um, I think the answer is no, but I would. caveat it just because I don't know those tools too well.
Yeah.
It's too hard to, I really like I'm a completist, as I said earlier, and I really want to know everything about Asana. So, and it's hard doing that. I don't have time to learn those other tools. So I don't actually make recommendations to clients about which tool. I tell them that I don't think you can go wrong with Asana, but I don't have enough knowledge to look at those other tools. But what I liked about Asana starting 11 years ago, I was doing a bunch of, design work and front end development and design with collaborators, a core team back east and some people I was working with remotely. We needed a coordination tool. Asana was just out of beta. And I chose it because I thought I liked the company. I liked that they were in beta for 4 years. They weren't going anywhere, and they open sourced all of their sort of best practices. It was the whole work style and the tool to implement the work style. And it was the company, the principles, the mission, everything together. I was attracted to all the things that they published. I read everything, and I liked all of that. I don't really see that in these other companies. So I don't think the answer would be that I would be doing anything like this anymore. I might still be doing interaction design or something, because I think Asana is unique in the product, the usability of the product, which I really wanted something that I knew I was going to be in it all day long. It had to be incredibly nice to use, and nothing else seemed like that really. So it was a unique set of things that I don't think would be present in the other tools. Would you do it? You seem like a machine, so you could produce.
Yeah, I don't know. 10 years ago, I had to choose between Asana and Zoho. And maybe my life would be completely different if I chose Zoho. I don't know. But at the same time, you have very successful Zoho partners in the US, for example. So I guess I would have probably ended up in the same place, just with a different tool.
Yeah. And something like Monday is, it's sort of like, I think a tool maybe only an engineer could love, possibly. And, if you're an engineer, maybe that's a fun environment to work in. So, but I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm happy with the choice. I think you are too.
Yeah, definitely.
And we wouldn't have met each other.
Or maybe we could have met in Zoho forums.
All right. That's our bizarro life, alternate universe.
Exactly. All right. Thank you. Anything you want to add before we stop?
No, it was a pleasure. Maybe let's consider a part 2 sometime on, subtasks, the short, I don't know. Well, we'll think of it, but
like everything you need to know about
minutes.
subtasks.
Everything you need to know about subtasks in 10 minutes.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna create a task for this. Thanks. Bye.